But now that we have a separate ministry for water resources, what impact can this have on irrigation farming?
Okay, well, separate ministry for water resources hasn't really achieved much in terms of, what its name, sounds like. I would expect that the Ministry of Water Resources will build on the work that have been done in the late 70s, early 80s. As we speak today, our river basin development authorities are, comatose. They are near dead. And we should think about reviving them. One thing I would say here with emphasis is that those that came up with that idea had a vision, for years into the future. But sadly enough, that is not being implemented now. So we actually need to look again at our river basin development authority. And it's very, very key to food security in Nigeria. And then, of course, you talked about it as a separate ministry. It used to be part of Ministry of Agriculture in the past. Now, the fact that it is now a separate ministry does not mean that it will operate independent of agriculture. There must be this synergy. There must be this, exchange. There must be this working together for a common purpose, particularly for the sake of providing, water resources to support agriculture. Of course, I know that they also have roles in other areas, but when I'm trying to, narrow it down to agriculture here, they are supposed to even be, custodian of, technical knowledge about how water can serve agriculture in Nigeria. They're supposed to be consultants and advisors to the Ministry of Agriculture, so that because water is very central, and there are many communities and individuals that cannot afford to provide water for themselves. So it must be done at such a level, at such a height, that at least seeing the need for, because I think, let me put it this way, we should see our needs for food security, our need for abundance of production of what we need to eat in this country, and then think about how much it adds to the economy. And then, get the Ministry of Water Resources to work alongside that vision that will help, trickle down to the policies and programs that will make them to work, together with the Ministry of Agri towards ensuring food security in this country. So, like I said, again, for emphasis, water resources should not be seen as a completely separate ministry that operates independent of agriculture. And that's the thing. And I want to say this too, among the ministers, there's sometimes this problem of contest. It shouldn't be. People who are appointed ministers shouldn't be operating as if they are rivals. They should see themselves as colleagues and collaborators and cooperators. And I think this is something that must be emphasized. Otherwise, the ego of being co-ministers will make some people not to look at what they should do for the country, but they will be emphasizing their status. And that does not help the country.
So, Dr. Oyeleye, how important or how crucial is agricultural data in all of this? Because for some analysts, they say for the government to make informed decisions, the minister or the government must embrace agricultural data.
Yeah, only magicians manage, organizations without data. Professor Peter Drucker says if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. So we really need data to work with. But this data will not come by guesstimate. It will come by systematic, outing. People should be on the field. I'm talking to you now from a suburban area. And so for being in the rural community, I'm able to see a number of things. And I can, tell about certain things, based on personal experience. So the people shouldn't sit in the high horse over there and think policies will just be, evolved and then figures will be cooked up somewhere. They need to go onto the field. And the thing is that a ministry like agriculture has a whole department whose job is, to gather information, but it must be made more proactive and more efficient. So to be able to, and of course, the data we had on so many areas of agriculture, commodities, crops, and then livestock and fishery should be harnessed. But then I want to make a point here. In doing that, figures gathered in the past 30 years cannot help us today. For instance, the last livestock census that was done in 1991. And you can imagine using 1991 data today. We not help. And that was, contracted out to a consulting firm that time. But today, we don't have any reliable, figure on livestock, particularly our cattle, sheep, and goat. Anything you find today is just estimate. And that is just extrapolation over the years. So people need to go on the field to assess what we have commodity by commodity, crop by crop in the area of crop, and then, of course, animal by animal. Poultry industry, which is about the biggest livestock sector in this country, in terms of, sectoral, sectoral activity that actually, is visible to the economy. They regulate some of the activities by themselves. They are able to generate a lot of figures, from tailed chicks to the layers to broilers and all of that. The government needs to also work with the Poultry Association of Nigeria to be able to harness the information that they have. But I want to also say for an association like Poultry Association of Nigeria to be able to open up, they would want to be sure that government is not trying to just get them to release information so as to be able to score political points or to, go to the press and say we are having this, when in actual fact the practitioners are not really, feeling the impact of the government. So if you want to gather information in such an area, in such a subsector like poultry, for instance, the practitioners must see the assurance that they are not going to be used for political purpose. They are going to be used to help the industry, to create jobs, to produce more meat, to produce more egg, and then, of course, to also boost the country's economy. So, yes, data, very, very important. But
so
the people who want to talk about data must make it manifestly clear that they want to use it for real practical purpose, not for political purpose.
So some of the points you've raised will lead me to my next question. There is this argument that a Greek minister should not be armchair officer. How will you address the minister on this?
Oh, yeah, clearly. The minister should be on the field. That's the point. Once in a while in the office, but most of the time on the field. Because reports that come to offices are, in most cases, filtered, distorted. And so what people are getting, upon which they make pronouncements, are based on, distorted and, filtered reports, which will not reflect the reality on the ground. And that's why the minister should be on the field. That's why the minister should see things by himself. The minister should pay unscheduled visit, unannounced visit to places, so that if you make an announcement, you are coming to this place, people will do window dressing. And you won't be able to get the right kind of information. So I agree, yes, the minister should be on the field, not for most of the time, not in the office. That's the truth about it. At the very best, since there's a minister and a minister of state, when one is on the field, the other one is in the office. Maybe if there's any need for urgent, meetings and some engagements, and you want to receive official visitors and what have you. But most of the time, you'll be on the field. And when the one that is on the field comes back, the one in the office should also go out too. They should alternate their outing. And then, of course, they should work together. Again, it's very important. The struggle between ministers and ministers of state usually can play up. They need to work together in synergy. That's the point I want to make here. Otherwise, it's not going to make much of a difference. And there could be cold wars between two ministers, and all of that. So these are some of the things that actually also reduce their efficiency and their performance and their impact, as ministers. So definitely, they need to spend time out there.
All right, so let's quickly talk about fertilizer, highly critical for food production. How can government sanitize the process of fertilizer distribution to farmers?
The process of fertilizer distribution to farmers had been sanitized since way back 2012, 2014. It's just that it changed again after 2014, and many of the things that were prevented within that space of time had come back. The fact is that fertilizer issue is not within the government ambit. Government should not be involved in fertilizer distribution. You shouldn't do it as a kind of largesse or favor. It is business. Let the producers, the distributors, do it like somebody goes to a shop. You want to buy Coke and buy and drink, and you pay. That is the way it should be. as long as government continues to get involved in this, then of course it gives people an impression that government is, is a big father, big brother who will always bring, fertilizer in and then distribute to farmer. It does not help. At the very most, you talk about subsidy. It's very important. If developed countries subsidize inputs for production and agriculture, we cannot shy away from it. We also need to subsidize. But what I would say is that our subsidy should be well targeted and should be well informed. The subsidy shouldn't be, done in a discriminatory manner. It should be done based on what we want to achieve. Who are the players here? If we have record, if we have data that has been systematically gathered and sorted out, then of course it should be easy to target those who should be targeted, but definitely not to use fertilizer as political.
All right, Doctor. So quickly, what more incentives do you think government needs to provide for farmers?
That what? I didn't hear the
What
question.
more incentives do you think government needs to provide for farmers?
Okay, fine. One of the incentives that government needs to provide for farmers is, for instance, we talk about information. It will surprise you when I talk about information as an incentive. Many farmers are very much oblivious of so many different things. Even in particular, market price. Market price is one of the things they are oblivious of. So the government should make arrangement. Again, not only at the federal level, at the state level too, there must be an arrangement that would ensure that, information, market information service, for instance, is readily available. So people can think about, when do I want to sell what I have? So that they do not go and give out, because usually there's this price fluctuation cycles in agricultural product. So if a farmer has an information, in his hand about market, he can decide, no, I'm not selling my product at this time. I will keep it till another time. Because when people flood the market with a lot of commodities or the same kind of commodity at the same time, the price drops precipitously, and that affects the fortune of those who produce. And then when those people who buy and hold realize that they are not so much in the market, then they release, and then they sell at exorbitant prices when they don't have competitors. The real farmers that produce would be, the ones that are shortchanged. So that is one of the incentives that I think need to be provided for farmers, and that's very important. Then rural, and then that brings me back to the rural development. Many communities have poor roads. Many of them are not able to bring their produce to the market, even as short as 2 kilometers away. They can't move their produce.
Dr. Oyeleye.
Things get wasted.
Sadly, we're out of time. Thank you so much, Doctor. We're out of time. But, this is an ongoing conversation. I'm certain we will continue some other time. Thank you so much for coming on the program. I've been speaking with an agriculture business analyst, Oyeleye, tonight to discuss the task ahead of the Minister of Agriculture. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you very much for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But the conversation continues from here. Get in touch with us on Twitter at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Goodbye.